Hi, everyone. We're here for Choosing a Different Future. I'm Siris Rivas Verdejo, and I have an amazing guest with me here today. I'm super excited to introduce you to her. We have actually started having conversations years ago and have been wanting to have more conversations because we have a lot in common, personally, professionally, and how does it get any better? What else are we going to discover today, I wonder? Um, I would love for you to say hi to Trina Rice, who's the owner of Harmony Therapeutics LLC. She is an access consciousness facilitator, a coach, an international speaker. She actually facilitates a lot of different things too. She's a best-selling author, an adventurer, a wanderer, a lover of life, much like myself. Yes, see, I told you we had a lot in common, right? She's a catalyst for change, inspiring possibilities that allow you to acknowledge your gifts of awareness and to embrace your brilliance. And I get that some of y'all watching this would like some of that. So Trina has over 20 years of experience as an occupational therapist, working with kids of all ages, including adults and families of all kinds. She is known to have a great connection with children, particularly those with special abilities. And I love that she, much like me, likes saying special abilities, not disabilities or special needs. And we can talk a little bit about that today. She has an ability to look beyond any labels, limitations, disabilities, diagnoses, or definitions to discover the magic that is hidden by illusions. So welcome, Trina. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for
Welcome to the
having me. I'm
show.
so excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
That is so true.
So I'd love to start off by asking you, what do you mean by special abilities? And why do you choose that instead of special needs or disabilities when you speak about your clients and the people that you play with and work with?
Well, that's an awesome question. Because they're amazing. But really, it's not looking at the wrongness of someone. Like, we are so taught in this reality to be normal, to fit in, and to not go beyond what is the median. And that's part of why it's like the disability, but it's not. It's where they haven't had ease at maybe fitting into this reality. However, they do have these amazing capacities and these amazing abilities. And when you're willing to look at it from a different perspective or a different point of view, then you can actually see the gifts that they come here to be and to show you that you have to be willing to ask and look and receive.
I
So they
love that.
are special abilities.
So what does that look like? So ask and receive from them. I mean, we've talked a bit, and I love some of your videos. You should definitely check out Trina's YouTube videos and things like that, and her Facebook page, because there's some videos that she has where she actually invites us to go beyond words and really actually perceive and receive what people, all people, are trying to communicate to you, and much of it is not verbal at all. Is that because a lot of your clients are nonverbal, or what is that? Like, where is that? How has that shown up for you professionally and personally?
Yeah, a lot of my clients are nonverbal. I work with kids with special abilities, particularly autism, but anything on the spectrum, ADD, ADHD, all different forms of people, places, and things. But a lot of them don't use words because the words are so slow for them, and they use the energy. And I myself, I guess I've always been that way, but I never really recognized it until I started working more with the kids with autism who do not speak. And then I never got why, like, I had a connection with them. Like, we just kind of, they're like, oh.
Can we talk about that? There's a little bit that you said that is not small. It's a couple words, and yet it's kind of a big idea. And it's it's too slow for them.
Yeah.
Words are too slow for them. And that is huge for me. And it was a big, as a speech language pathologist, was putting a lot of value on the verbal because that's where people are coming for me for that. And I also wasn't recognizing how much I was receiving and how much I was being and sending to everybody non-verbally. And it was so much faster. And as soon as I acknowledged that piece that you brought up, that I was like, wow, there's so much more available with these kids and with these families and with me. If I was willing to be like, let's go faster. Let's actually work with the energetic languages and not just the verbal languages.
Yes. And it's looking at all of it. Like, it's even beyond gestures, and it's beyond facial expressions. It's actually the energetics of everything, which is so freaking awesome, because what is your first language? Like,
For me, energy. For me, energy. I don't know what anyone else on here watching this is going to say. Put it on below and let us know what your first language is.
Yes. But it really is. It's energy, because as an infant and as a baby, you don't speak. You have different cries, and typically your parent or someone will figure out, okay, that cry is, oh, they need their diaper changed, or I'm hungry, or I'm tired. But there's no words, and yet you perceive what your child or your baby requires. And so it's being that energy, and that's how we came into the world. And so these kids are so aware of all of those things, and we are too, when we allow ourselves to tap into it.
And that's one of the things I love with working with these kids, is that they invite us to be that more, to be what we've always had, like, and play with those abilities and capacities we've always had. And they highlight it. So when I started acknowledging it and playing around with it with my clients, it was like I was actually getting that and being that more for me everywhere else in my life outside of the professional. And it just created an amazing life.
It is. And it's asking, like, and perceiving what you are aware of. And it comes with time when you're willing to actually go there and be a tool. But, like, as an example, God, there's so many examples.
Yeah. I'd love some examples.
But sometimes, when you get that thought in your head, okay, here's a fun example in everyday life, and then I'll give you another one. So, like, I was laying in bed the other morning, and I was, when you're in that half awake, half asleep mode, and I had this thing of like, oh, I just got flowers, like, and they're like laying in bed next to me, like, somebody just got me flowers. That's so cool. But then I woke up and there were no flowers. However, later that day, I did receive flowers. It was like the awareness of already perceiving what was going on in somebody else's, like, world. And then I actually received the flowers. So that's just like one thing. And, like, you can make that wrong and be like, okay, yeah, I just dreamed that or whatever. Well, you could have just dreamed it. But what if it's actually the awareness speaking to you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, you might be perceiving the future, like the title of the show. What? So we could choose to receive now, and then we can actually perceive the future. What? We didn't even plan that, y'all. That was so awesome.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah. Well, and just like I got it more clearly. Like, one time I was working with a young man or a teenager that I work with who has autism, and he's nonverbal, and he has, learned a little bit to type on his iPad, but mostly he used his picture icon. So he had like a picture wallet, and he would pull it out and point to what he required, and it just had the basic essentials of his everyday in it. Mm-hmm. And I was working with him, and we were actually typing on the iPad about something, and I kept getting in my head, and it wasn't like I had this like thought that went, I need to go to the bathroom. It was actually just this like fleeting thing that came by, like, well, I could really use to go to the bathroom. And I kept hearing it, and I'm in my head, I was like, I just went to the bathroom. I don't need to go to the bathroom. And then I'm like asking my stomach, I'm like, do I need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that. And like a few minutes later, after I got done typing, he pulls out his like little picture icon wallet, and he points, opens it up, flips it open, and he points to the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, you have to go to the bathroom. And so
It was you all along.
so he was already telling me he needed to use the restroom before we were done. And I'd already gotten the message, but I, judging it, thought it was me. And then I finally was like, oh my gosh, he sends me stuff all the time, and I get messages all the time, and I have made it wrong of thinking I am thinking that myself, or putting thoughts in other people's heads, or whatever it is. And really, when you start to begin to realize that that's a possibility, that stuff shows up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it works.
You know, and it's so funny because a lot of my parents that come in, they're like, okay, my child needs to talk. Get them to talk, right? Because most of the kids, when they first start working with me, they're nonverbal. And some of them start talking and some of them don't. Most of them, because it's early and like between birth to 3, a lot of my experience, then they actually do start vocalizing and talking and all these different things. But I ask them, how much are you already aware of what they need and require, what they've already been communicating to you that you haven't acknowledged? And they just go, oh, wow. Okay. And I was like, yeah, don't you already know when they're hungry? Don't you already know when they need a diaper change? Don't you already know when they're like, don't really want to be near somebody, or they want a hug, or all that stuff? And the parents are like, wow, because that piece you talked about judging yourself, they've been judging themselves for their child not talking. Not acknowledging how much have they already been communicating with you, how much have you already been meeting their needs and being an amazing parent and caregiver, teacher, because some of them are teachers too, that you haven't acknowledged. Let's start from there, and let's use that awareness that you already have to our advantage to incentivize them.
Yes.
And many times out manipulate their little actions and behaviors that they'll do so that we can encourage them to talk. But what if we didn't require the verbal before we acknowledged what we're already communicating to them and what they're communicating to us? Yes. I love that. And the getting out of the judgment. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's amazing. That is so cool. And that's a great question to ask anybody, parents, teachers, caregivers. Because until you really start to begin to tap in how much communication is already occurring, it opens the door for even more possibilities to show up, and whatever way that is, whether that is with words or whether that's more with facial gestures or just the whispers of.
Yeah, and the pictures, you mentioned pictures too. Yeah. Like I use a lot of like the picture exchange communication with my students and different types of augmentative communication devices. And it's not one thing or the other.
No.
It's using your awareness with all of these tools and devices and systems. And so I love that you're not cutting off and all of a sudden like, nope, we're not doing any of the devices like the iPad anymore with this. That's not at all what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly.
No. Use all of it. But when you're willing to actually acknowledge, one thing I was going to say is like, these kids are the willingness to be the question where no one else is willing to be the question. So what they're doing is getting you to see a different way that you may not have been willing to be or do before. And so it's not eliminating anything, it's adding all of it together. But when you can acknowledge them and ask, one of my biggest things is asking questions, it actually starts to shift and change so many of the things. But like I'll use the icons, the iPad, other augmentative communication devices. But one of the other amazing things that you can do is send pictures in your head, like a movie, like really fast, because they're so fast. That's why the words slow them down. because they get stuff like at the speed of space.
They want the whole movie. They don't want just one clip. They want the whole thing.
Give them the whole thing. So if they're having a hard time getting ready and you're struggling every morning to get out the door, to get them to school, what if you actually gave them the whole movie, the whole picture of like, okay, and it doesn't have to be in a particular order because it's not linear at all. Like, okay, you need to get up, you got to get dressed, whatever their routine is, get dressed, eat food, brush your teeth, get your coat on, get your backpack, and then we're going to get in the car or you're going to get on the bus. Give them all of that, but like in a split second. And what they do.
And that takes some practice too. We're shaking up some people's worlds here, Trina, with this. And we get that. And if you have any questions for Trina or for me about how to do this and get practice about this, please go ahead and post it below, because we get that we are functioning with these kids and with other people in a very different way. But that's also part of why we're so effective. We're very effective. Like I remember, actually realizing that I didn't actually have a lot of annual review meetings and stuff because a lot of my kids were getting discharged and meeting their goals and stuff within 6 months, when other people would take more than a year or multiple years. And it's not about like judging anybody else or anything like that. It's just acknowledging, like, when you are willing to move as fast as these kids are inviting you to move, they do progress a lot faster. Things show up really unexpectedly, very non-linearly, like Trina was saying, in ways that you're just like blown away, like, oh wow, okay, this is showing up now. This is something that that no one ever really expected for this child to be able to do or say or communicate or have as a skill, and now they're doing it. And okay, now what else is possible? Yes. So please ask us questions. We're kind of gonna go and really, we're going far and deep, and that's how we do. We work really fast, but we're also inviting you to look at, okay, is what you already been choosing working? And if it is working, cool, do more of that. And if you'd like some more tools and more strategies to maybe exponentialize that, consider some of the things that we're talking about, because we've been seeing some really amazing things with the kids that we work with using all of these tools.
Yeah, so true. And they don't have the barriers between them and everything and anyone. Like, there is no barriers. There's none of the right brain, left brain function. There's just the space. So that's why they are so fast, and they're tapped into the energy of all of it. There was something I was going to say about that. I just forgot.
Well, the whole like left and right brain, I love that you're saying that it's actually almost like it's a whole brain for them.
Yeah. They
don't have this separation, no separation from them and other people, but also from all the different aspects of them. Like if something's going on with them in someone's world emotionally, like in their parents, a lot of the kids I work with, I'm actually working more with the parents than with the kid, because the kid is picking up on their parents' points of views about bodies, about speech, about food, and then it's showing up in the kid, and it's the kid's behavior that's inviting us to ask questions about them and the whole family.
Yes, I love that. That is so true, because behavior is just a form of communication. It's another form of communication.
Yeah.
and these kids are like psychic, like they're like radio towers, like just think of a radio tower and all the energy that it emits so that we can have our cell phone coverage, so we can have internet. They're picking up the energies of that all the time, of everybody around them, all their thoughts, feelings, energetic points of views, judgments, and there's just so much that they are aware of. And one of the things that I get that they're actually showing us is how to actually go beyond the judgments that we have of ourselves and the judgments that we may have of other people or other people have of us, because they don't really function that way. They do not really judge because they're so fast. And when you're willing to be that speed, it's almost like bypassing all of that. They're just this willingness to be this space.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you were talking about is the awareness of picking up on other people's thoughts, points of views. That's a biggie for parents, teachers, for everybody. Because if you walk in the door and you're having one of those we all have our great days and we all have our crappy days. And you walk in the door and you're having a crappy day, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're going to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're aware of it. Like, I have kids who tell me they can hear conversations that their parents are having behind closed doors.
I was one of those kids.
Yeah.
I was absolutely one of those kids. And the clients that I have now, and in the last, couple of years and everything, when I started to actually acknowledge that, I was like, wow, I always had that capacity, and they have it too. And it's not so that parents can start feeling ashamed about the days that they've had, the rough moments, or when they've yelled, or when they're stressed out. Because that's the other thing that's about these kids, is that they let all that stuff go really fast. It's only us, when we keep judging ourselves and holding on to it, that it makes it more and more solid. But they're totally willing to let it go and forgive you. They're so grateful for you for just being you and showing up, that it's like, if you are willing to let it go, they're already let it go. It's only you continuing to bring it up again and again in your world that they're like, oh, you're here again? We're talking about this again? You're worrying about this again? Oh, okay. Because that was like yesterday to me. That was, even though it was just a couple minutes ago, that was already like eons ago.
Yeah. Well, I just had one of the young men, adults, teenagers that I work with autism. He was having a hard time because he's at a day program, and like his school and stuff. And it's really loud. It can be really super loud sometimes. And you're talking about these kids who are so aware of the energies that we're talking about, and that can come in as like hearing way so much. And he had a rough day, and he ended up pulling somebody's hair, and that's not typical for him, but that was like his outlet, because he didn't have any other way of expressing it. So one of the things, his mom was like, hey, this occurred. Could you talk to him? Oh, I asked her if she wanted to talk to him about it. And she's like, yeah, please. That was all sent via text over a phone. I show up at his place. He pulls out his iPad, and I'm like, hey, how are you today? Like, how's your head? What's going on? And we just started having a conversation. He's like, I'm and he types, I'm having a hard time. And it's not the easiest typing for him. It's like letter by letter. And he's like, I'm hearing too much. And then he actually brought it up himself. I didn't bring it up. He brought it up. So like, how aware was he? For one, he probably wanted to have the conversation because he knew he wanted to change it. But the other part of it too is, how aware was he that, like, oh yeah, this is something, like, he already heard the conversation between his mom and I, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So aware of those energies. But the cool thing about it is we had a conversation. He's like, can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, there's some things that we can do to help adapt your environment to make it easier and for you to find a space that you can go to when you need to, like, get away from all of that. And then he kept asking, he kept saying, I haven't teased them at all. And I'm like, it's nothing you've done. It has nothing to do. You've done nothing wrong. You have not teased them. I said, it's just the same thing as you. When you're so aware, like, one of the things like he likes to do is he flicks a sock. Like, here, I said, you like to flick your sock because you've told me before it helps you shift the energies. And this person's probably screaming because it helps them shift the energies. It doesn't have anything to do that anybody did something wrong to them. And then he was like, oh, and he's like, I just want everybody to be happy. And that's really what it is. And that's what we're talking about. When their whole brain functioning, there's none of those filters. So they're so aware of all those points of views, that they take a lot of them on as they're yours. So if they're hearing, as they're theirs. So if they're hearing these conversations, then they're like, there's part of it where then they're acting it out, and that's where the behaviors come, because they're aware of all of that stuff. So sometimes asking a question is an amazing gift to them.
I haven't found it never not to be a gift anytime I've chosen it so far.
Yeah.
Even as simple as like, okay, so what am I aware of here? What are they aware of? Like, one of my really good friends was looking at it for a new house, and she has these beautiful 2 boys that I've gotten to get to know. And one of them started tantruming right in front of one of the houses that they were going to check out. And she was, and instead of making him wrong or her wrong as a parent, herself wrong, she was like, what is he aware of? And as soon as she asked the question and received awareness that that was not a house for them, that he did not need to go in there, that we didn't even have to look in and walk across the threshold to know that, as soon as they were turning to, let's go home, then let's go to the next house, his behavior shifted.
Wow, that's amazing.
It can be that fast, and so just asking, like, what are you aware of? What am I aware of? How does it get any better than this? I love that one.
And one of my favorite questions is, what do you know? I mean, how often do you ask somebody, especially a child, what do you know? What do you know about that? Oh, and what do you know about that? Oh, and what do you know about that? So like, just as that example you just gave about the house, it'd be like, so what do you know? And they got it, like, that's not the house.
Yeah.
But like, I've used that question with so many kids, and I'll ask them like, hey, what's up? What do you know about this? Even where they're struggling with certain things in school. And you would be surprised, like, what they tell you.
Because they're so focused on what they're missing and not on the immensity, which is usually way greater, of what they do know. And then they're like, oh, wow, no one's ever asking me that. Let's pivot and actually look at what the gift I be with this. What am I? What do I know? What gifts and capacities do I have with this? And it's usually a lot.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, even with any of them, like, I just worked with a girl the other day who, you would say fairly typically functioning, and she was having difficulties with handwriting and a few other things. And so I was working with her, and one of the things I just said, so I'm here just to help you. Like, I'm here to make it easier for you and to make school easier. So tell me, what are you having problems with? Like, what do you see that you are challenged with? Where can I help you? And then she's like, oh, like, writing is so hard. And so then I asked her, like, so what do you know about writing? And as we talked about it, I was like, then we like started looking at our eyes, because all this stuff came up around like her vision. And without me concluding, but like, I asked her a lot of stuff, and like, she's like itching her eyes. They're like watering as she's handwriting. And I'm like, so what do your eyes do during the day? And through that, it's like, well, what if one of the things we considered is like you going to get an eye exam? Like, like just asking those questions, and then it just changed everything. And yes, that still is a possibility, but it's a possibility that wouldn't have come up if we wouldn't have asked the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she looked at it, she was like, oh, so there might actually not be anything wrong with me. Like, I'm not bad for not being good at handwriting. Like, this might be something. And it took all the pressure off of her as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gets back to what you started off with, where it's like, what if nobody that we're talking about, including ourselves, what if none of us are wrong?
Yes.
And for me, like, I've had parents that be like, oh my God, thank you. You're one of the first professionals, therapists, teachers who has focused on what gift my child is and not everything that's wrong. They'll go through all they're delayed in this. They're having a hard time with this. Da, da, da. And I'm like, hi, welcome to me and to the play space and to this building or to school and to this room or whatever it is. And like, how much fun can we have? And oh my gosh, how powerful are you? And how amazing are you? And I ask the parents all the things that they love about their child and what they do well. And that's the platform that we build everything else off of. is what's right about your child, what's right about you as a parent. What do you know? Just like that question you asked, I asked the parents too. What do you know about what works for your kid?
Yeah. And what is right about this, and what's right about you, and what's right about this situation, instead of looking at what's wrong about it. Because every time we look at what's wrong about it, what do we get?
Get more of that.
We get more of what's wrong, instead of like, oh, okay, I get it. There's this. This is the gift. And what if then, like you just stated, you could actually build upon that?
I love that. Trina, I get the sense that we can talk for quite a bit longer here. One of the things I'd love to ask you is, actually, given all the choices that you've made, all these amazing, you know, for many people, they would consider them miracles that you've seen with some of these kiddos. If you could speak for them and for what you have experienced and what you'd like to see, what do you think they would want to see in the world in the future? And what would you like to see in the world and in the future?
I personally would love to see a world where we're actually willing to show up as who we truly are, instead of hiding behind an illusion of who we think we have to be. Whether that's because we have a label or we've been diagnosed with something, but allowing us just to show up, and everything that we think is so wrong about us, all the wrongnesses, and looking at what they are, the capacities and the strongness. So what if we actually had a world where we went beyond the judgment, where we went beyond the labels, and where everything was just the willingness. You were just willing to be. Like and I've asked, like the boy that I was talking about, I've asked him before when he's typed, and he typed me this amazing poem. I wish I had it right now, but I don't. Because I asked him, I'm like, I kind of asked him that question, like, what would you like for the future? Or why do you consider you're here? Like, what's your message? And one of the things he was saying, we came here to change meanness into kindness, and for everyone to see the greatness of them. And then he went, now go be. Like, that's amazing.
That's getting me crying here.
I know.
That's really beautiful.
That comes from someone who hasn't been able to totally engage in this world, who's nonverbal, who can't communicate everything he would love to say. And he keeps saying, I have so much to say. But like, when you're willing, I mean, and I get that that's what a lot of these kids are asking for. They're so amazing, and they show us how to be happy in ways that we have not allowed ourselves to be happy. And they really want you to be you, and to be the greatness of you.
Wow. Oh, I don't have tissue nearby. I'm going to keep sniffing. Sorry. That is really beautiful. I'm so glad I asked you that question.
Yeah.
Wow. How does it get any better than that? So what can we be, or what can we choose that would actually move us in that direction, that would turn that meanness into kindness? Do you have any ideas on that?
Choose.
Choice? What? We don't like choice on this show. We didn't put it in the name because we like it. It's just actually for people to choose the opposite. Don't choose, right?
Well, what if you could actually choose to see, we'll start off like what we were talking about. What if you could actually choose to see what is right about you that you have made so wrong about you? That's like one big thing. And every day, like, it really is just choosing. But what if you could just, like, 3 things each day that you're grateful for of you, or the one thing that you're struggling with, whether that is a child that has a special ability. What are 3 things you're grateful for? And build on that, because I'm not saying everything's perfect and it's all easy, because it's not always easy. But I will say one thing: by being able to take a different perspective and look at it and start to see where they're showing us, like kind of being a mutation of like showing us how to be higher energy.
Oops, it's cutting out.
Talking about to make things a lot easier, because you get the gift that they came here to be.
Could you rewind and say that last bit a little bit again? Trina, it cut out just a bit. If you can remember. We'll just invite people to perceive the energy of what she was trying to say.
I think I was saying to just choose. What if you're willing to acknowledge? What if they're showing up to show us a gift that we haven't been willing to be? And what if that is like the gift of beyond the judgment and beyond those labels? And when you're willing to actually acknowledge the gift and change your point of view, it allows things to become easier.
Wonderful. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Trina. I get that we could talk a lot more. That's one of the things I love about all my guests. I want all of them to come back and play and talk some more. Gosh, so Trina travels the world facilitating classes, and she's also based out of, is it Missouri?
Both Kansas and Missouri.
Kansas and Missouri.
Yeah.
We need to get, I'm getting updates here, y'all. It's been a minute. Okay, cool.
Right on state line.
What was that? And online?
I said I'm right on state line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll do it. So they can find you on both sides and everywhere else in the world. If you would like to see her somewhere else in the world, she has the world map behind her, inviting you to be like, where's next?
Where's next?
All the places that we can go together and create together. Yes. And so we'll put her information and contact information below this video. She has a website, trinarice.com. You can find her on Facebook. We'll have all of those yummy tidbits for you. If you have any questions about that, let us know. Please subscribe to our channel here. If you like this video, if you'd like some more videos like this, and ask Trina questions on this video. She is going to be in touch with us. If you have questions about how to receive from these amazing folk with special ability and from yourself more, and beyond all the judgment, I get that she would be willing to answer all of those questions for you and connect you to some other resources and possibilities. And if you have any other people that you would like to submit and let us know would be a great guest for our show, you can go to choosingadifferentfuture.com and submit it through there, or message me directly at choosingadifferentfuture@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Trina. Really, really appreciate you being on the show. I really hope you'll consider coming back. It's been an honor and a pleasure, per usual. Anytime we get to chat, it's always lights me up and lightens up my world.
Thank you so much. And ditto right back at you. Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.